Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome once again. This is Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. You got Brent Axe with you here. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We would love for you to check out our postgame shows live. Make sure you subscribe, though, on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, Syracuse Sports on YouTube, so you can listen and watch on demand when you want. And what we're talking about here tonight is the rock bottom loss in the Adrian Autry era. Syracuse falls to Miami 91-84, just the second ACC win of the season for Miami, a Miami team that had lost 11 of its last 12 games. Coming into its matchup with Syracuse, had won only 5 games all year, a team that has a interim coach. Remember Jim Larinaga earlier this year, just up and leaves in the middle of the season, just had enough. And certainly a team that's got some talent. I mean, Matthew Cleveland is a hell of a player. Really reminded me of Wes Johnson out there watching him. And shout out to Syracuse Sports Insider Jack W. for the reminder on that. But it's a game you just can't lose. It's a game that has no excuses. This is not, sports, as Uncle Brent likes to say once in a while, or anything you can throw at me here. You don't lose to the worst team in the ACC. And it is the rock bottom loss for a team, remember, that has a lot of blowout losses under Autry and had some under Boeheim in his final years as well. They just lost to Duke by 29 points recently and has lost a number of games to good teams significantly by double digits or more. You just can't lose this game. You can't play in the fashion that Syracuse did. Miami led this game for over 34 minutes in one of the most pathetic defensive displays that Syracuse has put out there, not only this year, but in recent memory. And what is happening now, certainly had been happening to this point, but it just reinforces, it just rubs salt in the wound of a fan base that's wondering about its head coach and wondering if they have the right head coach and wondering if simply throwing money at this situation, which is what you have to do in college sports these days, is just going to fix everything next year. That beacon over the hill with Kiyan Anthony and Sadiq White, Luke Fennell coming in next year, Aaron Womack, whatever they manage to do in the transfer portal we'll see if they have more money to spend than they have in recent years. But you have to coach good players. And I think you have a fan base that's wondering if the coach can coach. Just that simple. And it's not all on Autry, certainly, but he's the man that it all points to as the head coach. And I think you have a hard job now if you are Syracuse University, John Wildhack on down, to convince this fan base that he is the right man going forward to lead this thing. Because when you keep losing games like this, and mind you, you lost to the worst team in the ACC tonight. You just had a triple overtime game before that against a team that's only got 2 ACC wins in Boston College. You can't beat good teams. You get blown out by good teams, right? You just lost to the worst team in the ACC. You barely got by a team that's got 2 ACC wins in Boston College that probably won't make the ACC tournament. So what redeeming quality do you have going forward to say, that's our guy, that he's going to have a lot of money to spend next year? And look, Syracuse has made the investment in a general manager. They're doing all the things in the modern era of college basketball you have to do. It's funny, Hubert Davis in North Carolina, who are very much on the bubble, and if Hubert Davis does not make the NCAA tournament this year, North Carolina might make a coaching change, right? Hubert Davis recently admitting in a radio interview that, oh yeah, maybe we should hire one of those general managers. Syracuse is on board with all these things. But you know what? If I'm a bad chef, you're not going to hire me at a 5-star restaurant. If I'm a bad driver, you're not going to let me get behind the wheel of the Lamborghini. Like, do we have a good coach at Syracuse is going to continue to be a question that fans are going to ask, and it's going to be hard to convince them otherwise when you lose games like this. And it was defense that lost this game tonight. I'm not really interested in the X's and O's of tonight. I mean, if you want to relitigate this thing, Matthew Cleveland, terrific player, 32 points. Syracuse could do nothing to stop him. Their transition defense was pathetic. Their interior defense was pathetic. I mean, Syracuse constantly goes under screens. And while they do have individuals that can play on the ball, at times are good defenders collectively as a unit, they're just a terrible defensive team. I mean, somewhat to Autry's credit, he did not hold that back when he came into his post-game press conference. I'll just give you some of the quotes that he had from his presser. Quote, "I'm very disappointed in our performance today. We played on one side of the ball. It's just unacceptable. You've got to play defense in this game. You have to be tough. You have to have the will and determination to stop people, and we didn't do it at all. It wasn't about the offense. It was about us getting stops. I thought we'd be able to lock in with 80 minutes to go, and we didn't. You need 5 guys to play defense. If one guy doesn't do his job, it all breaks down. I mean, we gave up 90 points. You just can't do that. I mean, dynamite drop in there, Monty. That broadcast school is really paying off. You know what the problem is, but fixing it and solving it is not translating from practice into games. And this is a team that has not improved on defense all year. This team that actually shot their free throws pretty well tonight after a pathetic performance there against Boston College, and is a team that's second to last in the ACC in free throw shooting, 16-17 at the free throw line. But Miami just had more clutch threes. Miami maintained the lead, as I mentioned, for 34 minutes. Syracuse had the lead for a minute and change in this game. And it's not like Miami was white hot from the three-point line and Syracuse wasn't. Miami was 10 of 20. Syracuse was 8 of 21. The turnover battle was close, but when Syracuse manages to keep the turnovers down and wins the turnover battle, they win those games. They have not lost this year when their opponent has had more turnovers than they had. Syracuse had 10 turnovers tonight, which you have to live with. But when you give those opportunities to, in this case, Miami or any team, they're going to eat them up. And look, credit to Miami for how they're playing, how they're putting it together. They, air quotes, only lost by 10 to a good Louisville team before this. There were NBA scouts all over the place in this building to watch Matthew Cleveland, who's a terrific talent. You had Betha in there who Syracuse recruited, and you know what? If he's going in the portal, I think that's a player that Alex Klein, Syracuse's general manager, should really target to come in. Syracuse desperately needs a point guard. I mean, Carlos tonight, for the most part, had a bad game. He had a couple of good shots, had a couple of plays down the stretch. But for the most part, in his 23 minutes, he was he just had a pathetic game. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. J.J. Starling had 25 points, but man, he had to shoot 8 of 21 to get there, right? And he goes 8 of 9. Good for him at the free throw line for somebody who struggled at the free throw line. But 1 of 6 from 3. Lucas Taylor, 1 of 4 shooting the ball, just has 1 3-pointer. Elijah Moore plays 11 minutes, doesn't score in this game. Eddie Lampkin, what more can you ask Eddie Lampkin to do? Now, Miami did a better job defending him. They had 2 people around him in the paint, a lot more in the second half, but the dude had 22 and 13, a double-double. Eddie Lampkin, who played 49 of 55 possible minutes against Boston College in that triple overtime game. Eddie has his flaws, interior defense, and other things about his game, but the dude gave you another double-double, 22 and 13, and that is on Autry. And maybe players are making individual decisions here and defying what the coach is saying, to be fair, just to put that out there. But they did not. This sounds really stupid to say, considering he had 22 and 13 and played 34 minutes. They didn't run the offense through him enough. Just if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And again, Miami made adjustments in the second half. Chris Bell, 14 points tonight. But he stepped out of bounds again, shooting a 3, which he seems to do every game. And it happens it's like a rocket going by in the sky, right? He just has these heat check moments, and then you don't get the consistent play from Chris Bell that you need, right? And Betha and Cleveland had the majority of the points for Miami tonight, 91 points. I mean, this was a Miami team that's giving up 80 points a game. Syracuse scored 84 points. Against this team, you score 84, it should be enough to just hang on and win. And look, sometimes you just got to do that, even against bad teams. Knowing what your flaws are, win this thing, 84-78, and get the hell out of there and forget about it. But you didn't. You lost. It's that mark. It's a brand on you now. And you just keep coming back to the question of why is Autry the guy when these things keep happening with this team, and all of a sudden you're just going to make it all better. And it can't happen in basketball. One guy can change the fortune of a basketball team, right? But you have to convince this fan base to just hold on what's that song? Hold on loosely. You just got to hold on loosely. Don't let go to next year. Everything will be fine next year. Well, where's the proof in the pudding that they can go in the portal and fix this thing? Because you still have to have a coach. Is Anthony or Sadiq White or unnamed transfer portal point guard that they desperately need? They're going to need another center out of the portal. Just are they going to be a player coach next year? Because you still need a coach that you have the belief and the faith that is running the organization, and you just got to give that chef better ingredients, and then he'll make a good meal. I mean, you now have to convince this fan base of that. You have to convince me of that. You have to convince a lot of people of that. And I'm just going to sit back now for the rest of the season as people start thinking more about next year. Or maybe they're not thinking about it at all. Shout out to my friend Brian, who had a really good analogy about this. And I don't want to bring politics into the discussion, but here's what he said. Syracuse basketball has become like politics. People have turned off the news and given up hope. Nobody wants to discuss it. Nothing will change, and the bottom seems to be lowered by the week. That's kind of what happens. People just don't watch. They just give up. They're just, I can't watch this thing. I've seen a number of people, heard from a number of people that literally, like, oh, what happened tonight? Did they lose? I didn't watch, right? So I'll tell you what, guys, they got a hell of a lacrosse team this year, and that lacrosse team is doing some special things already, and I think they are squarely in the conversation to win the national championship. So at least you got that. I mean, I'll be watching the rest of the year. If you don't want to watch, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what to do. I'll be on that wall because you need me on that wall. I'll be there to the end, but it's tough right now. It is tough to watch this team. It is tough to believe. It is tough to think they've got their, collective, what together here. I mean, man, you can't lose this game. I don't want to hear about sports and all the cliche. You can't lose this game. Not only lose it, but lose it in the manner that you did. So the worst record under Jim Boeheim was 16-17. With this team now at 11-14 and 6 games to go, like, you basically have to run the table to avoid that record. So that's going to be making it harder to convince people that you're heading in the right direction if you have a worse record than the worst record under the guy before you, right? Shout out to Syracuse Sports Insider Sean B for this tidbit. We're going to go to our insiders here shortly because they certainly had a lot to say about this one. And to become a Syracuse Sports Insider, all you have to do is either text the word orange to 315-847-3895 or hit that link on your screen, joinsubtext.com/Syracuse Sports. Only take a couple minutes to sign up. It's absolutely free for 2 weeks. Try it out. Text me directly. You get text from me, inside analysis, opinion, breaking news first, and so much more. And then it's just $3.99 a month after that. So we're going to go to our insiders here shortly. But Sean B., one of our terrific insiders, he's got a Substack where he really focuses on numbers. And I'm glad we have people like Sean to run the numbers on this stuff because I certainly was not a math major in school. But Sean B. ran the numbers on this. So Syracuse, by losing this game, Ken Pom number for Miami, Ken Pomeroy, for those of you not familiar, is 184. That's the worst loss by Syracuse per Ken Pom rankings since Syracuse dropped a game to Bryant on November 26, 2022, who was 205th. It's the worst conference loss by Syracuse. This is via Ken Pom numbers since they lost to Pitt in January of 2022, which is actually the season prior to that other number I mentioned, the Bryant game. So that was the 21-22 season. The Bryant game was the 22-23 season. Pitt then was ranked 195. The only time Syracuse has lost to a team ranked 180 or below in Ken Pom, and that data, according to Sean, goes back to 1997. Okay, so if you want to throw the analytics into the mix, not good. Not good just look at Miami's record this year. Okay, 5-18, 1-11. If you want to go by Ken, no matter what measurement, eye test, you can't lose this game. Especially given the pressure that Autry is under and just the general feeling around the program and with the fan base. You just shoved a whole lot of people into apathy. They're just like, come on, man, you're losing to Miami. I'm not watching this team the rest of the year. How do you get them back, right? How do you get them back? I'm not going to try and get them back. You don't want to watch? I'm not going to beg you. If you're Syracuse, though, you got a problem on your hands. To get people to stay invested in this thing and believe in what's coming. Big problem when you're losing games like this. couple other things I want to throw you. Miami shot coming in 31% from three-point range. And tonight, now again, 10 of 20, that's 50%. That's pretty darn good. Syracuse did hit 8 threes, but you got a team that's shooting 31% coming in, that shoots 50% from three in this game. That shows you where that defense was. That shows you where that pick a defense. Interior, exterior, transition, 2-3, man-to-man, the Chicago Bears, 460, whatever you want to, Buddy Ryan's Super Bowl defense, whoever you want to pick, no matter what they played. Boxing 1, 3-3-5, pick a defense, no matter what Syracuse was in. Miami's doing that to you. Miami, 1-11, well, now 2-11, but 1-11 coming in the ACC Miami. I got nothing, guys. You can't lose that game. You can't. You cannot lose that game in the manner that Syracuse did, or period. See what our insiders had to say. Maybe you guys can make this make sense for me. Frankie S. says, hey, Siri, what is rock bottom? It's the rock bottom loss. Ryan says maybe they haven't hit rock bottom as a program, but I think we're reaching new lows. Tampa Ron says this team is so much better when they make the extra pass. With limited talent, that is the key to them being successful down the stretch of this game and the season. Again, offense wasn't the problem tonight, right? Defense is where you hang your hat the most. Tampa Ron, my guy, not wrong, though, to say that. The offensive sets that they allegedly run, but when they do make that extra pass, when they do move the ball, when they go at a crisp pace, they look good on offense. When they find that out, make that extra pass, find Lampkin in the middle, hit the open guy, keep the ball moving on the perimeter. Like the things that Autry has said over and over again he wants this team to do and tells this team to do, but they don't do it consistently enough. If that's your identity and that's your offense, why do they fail to do it so much, right? Jake M says, all the insiders are going to scream for Autry's head, but Autry's not getting fired. That said, you could not lose this game. Absolutely humiliating. Brian says, Syracuse just lost to the last ranked team in the ACC. At this point, missing the ACC tournament would be a more dignified ending to the season. From Chris V, who says, I know there's so many factors at play, but it's really hard for fans to believe the program is heading in the right direction after a loss to a team that had one ACC win on the heels of a 3-overtime game against a team with 2 ACC wins. From my guy Mark, who says, this will sound strange, but we have some decent on-ball defenders, but team defense is awful and hasn't improved. Missed switches, constantly going under screens, no help defense on the interior. You want to hang something on coaching, there you go. Mark, just spot on right there. Okay, we're 25 games into the season. That's not getting better. Defense is a commitment. Defense is a mentality. Defense, everybody has an off night on defense, but that's freaking Miami out there. Cleveland, great player, okay? You could have Dennis Rodman out there. You could have the glove out there, and you'd have trouble guarding him at times. Great player. You're going to find great players in the ACC. But the collective defense, and Autry, I read the quote earlier, I mean, he knows what he's seeing out there. I mean, great observations there. He just can't fix the leaky pipe in that case. That comes from coaching. That comes from the top. That is a mentality. Your team mirrors who you are and what you are. It's one thing to look out there and say what they should be, but they don't do what you tell them to do. That's a talent thing, whatever that is. And Syracuse has gone back and forth between man and zone this year, and certainly they've had to switch to the zone at times, and it's worked at times. But the thing this far into the Autry era, where I will remind you of this, not only the blowout losses that I brought up earlier, and shout out to my guy Chris Smith, who did the research on this. And I just got to find it here. Autry is now 19-26 against Power 5 teams. 62% of those losses have been by double digits or fall in the blowout category. No matter what your definition of a blowout is, 62% double digits, right? These are not things that are going to assure your fan base, be like, just wait till next year, man. Just wait till they spend money in the portal. They'll be fine. It can't happen. In basketball, you find that guy, it can turn around your fortunes like that. It happened in football with Kyle McCord. Nothing against all the other transfers they got and the great recruiting that Fran Brown did, you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a 10-win season like that. If anybody currently recruited or somebody in the portal that they managed to throw some money at and comes in and makes an impact, it can turn around a basketball team. It can happen. We've seen it happen. But man, that guy better be really good. It better be able to overcome some of the flaws of the coaching on this team. Some of which we just went over there from Mark's great comment. From ALS, my guy, one of our more frequent Syracuse Sports Insiders. Love hearing from Al during games. Pardon me. He says, I'm sorry, but it is 5 Power 5 players against 4, and the coaching does not make up for the talent deficit. You can't score 80 and lose. From Ryan G, says, it's time to make a change now. I used to be annoyed when we were constantly on the bubble. I would die for those days. Now, a couple more from our Syracuse Sports Insiders, including Mike V, who says, I like when he gets aggressive. He's talking about Carlos here with the ball handler. I don't like how long it takes Syracuse to run their offense. Just can't seem to get over the hump. That's another thing that has not improved from Lemoyne to today. Why does this team take so damn long to get into the offense? When that offense works, ball's moving, crisp, keeping defense on their heels, find the open guy, get it inside, find Davis around the basket. Lampkin, who's just been, again, Derek Coleman. Maybe don't tweet that Eddie Lampkin doesn't deserve the 44 before you see him play and what he can do for this team, right? And again, Lampkin, you got to take the good with the bad. But guy gave you 22 and 13 in a game like this, and it just feels wasted. And there's been a few of those where he'll have a double-double. He'll do what you need your center to do, right? God bless Naheem McLeod, who has given Syracuse some positive minutes in the last few games. And I don't care that it's only a couple people. I've got people texting me and people on Twitter saying, Naheem McLeod's got to play more than Eddie Lampkin. I mean, are you insane? Give me a break with that stuff. Do it at 22 and 13 tonight. And again, Eddie, you got to take the good with the bad. When you have a player that's giving you that, but there's only one other guy, in this case it was JJ, and a little bit of Chris Bell and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it's what Mike V said. Why does that offense take so long? And again, offense wasn't really a problem tonight. You give me 84 points, you better beat Miami. You better beat the worst team in the ACC with 84 points on the board. But when that defense doesn't make any stops, I don't care if you got 5 guys scoring 30 points. It's not going to matter. I mean, the math would add up there, but you get what I'm saying. From Michael S., who says, 16 and 17 from the free throw line. But like my friend Rosanna Anadana, I don't know if I said that right. Very appropriate from Michael S., 50th anniversary Saturday Night Live special coming up this week. Says, quote, it's always something, and turnovers and defense down the stretch sealed the orange fate. From Eugene C., my guy, who says, if Syracuse qualifies for the ACC tournament, they should decline the invitation. And Stephen B. says here, a lot of insiders tonight. I wanted a lot of your feedback, so we're going to get a few more of you guys in here. He says, this is embarrassing. If there was a situation as to where to put the NIL money, Fran Brown's not doing any favors for Red. So let's say they get that $20 million in place. So for those of you that are familiar with the House settlement and everybody expects that to go through, that's going to give essentially Syracuse a salary cap of $20.5 million, and they can now pay players directly. Okay, right now, NIL comes from outside sources. Syracuse has Orange United. It has Athletes Who Care, but those are still organizations, yes, affiliated with Syracuse, but it's not Syracuse directly paying the athletes. The House settlement, if and when that goes through as expected, now it is in-house, ironically to use that term, because House is actually the name of the plaintiff in the case. But now the money is in-house, it's yours, and you allocate it. But remember, that's for all your athletic programs. So how much of the chunk does football get versus how much of the chunk that basketball gets? When basketball kind of needs it more than football. But football, you have to maintain what you built last year, a 10-win season. You brought in and won the transfer lottery with Kyle McCord, but you have to renew that, right? You got to spend money. You got to pay these players, not only the new guys that you're trying to bring in, but the players that stayed at Syracuse did not go in the portal that are coming back. Like, everybody wants their piece of the pie here. Love or hate the current status of college sports. $20.5 million. Sounds like a lot, but once you start allocating football here, basketball here, the other sports have to get a percentage of it, right? That all adds up. You still need the outside money. So who is Daddy Warbucks here that's going to step in and want to invest in this thing and say, you sure Autry's the guy? Because I know I don't care how much money I have. If I'm a billionaire and you come to me and you want $5 million to invest in these players, that's still $5 million. Then I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to give you $5 million to give to that guy to go spend. Why? Like, I'm really going to question you. Whereas when they made a change in football, and I'm not saying they need to make that change, but we're kind of barreling towards that, to be honest. When you made the change in football and there's a new energy and you had people that weren't spending money before that were motivated to do so, it's in a way easier to do that when you've wiped the slate clean. To get people to invest, you better really believe in Autry. And Autry is not doing enough to convince the fan base of that. Not only the fan base, but the money people. Now, I could be dead wrong about this. There could be a passionate alum that's got checkbook ready and like, we're going to fix this thing, man. You're my guy. Here you go. If so, great. If you can do that, you are a better salesman than I will ever be. And that is your task now, to go to those money people. And these are successful people that have made a lot of money. Lean on their emotions and lean on their status as Syracuse fans and get us back to the glory days. You could be the guy that gets us there. Like, good luck with that. I can't do that. I can't bullshit people like that. But you kind of have to do that a little bit in sales. So I wish you luck with that. When Autry's not exactly the one that I think is going to inspire people the way that, and I hate to compare the two because it's apples and oranges. It's different programs, different situations. But man, when you've got a new coach in play and the way that Fran Brown got McCord right away, got the recruiting class right, like showed receipts. The difference was Fran Brown showed receipts. You hired him in a month and he's like, look what I've done. What are the receipts that Autry can show? He has recruited well. He did get Kyan Anthony. Like, there are some things that you're checking the boxes in, but what receipts is he? And then Fran Brown went out and won 10 games. So now he's got leverage, right? Autry is now in getting down the road here. What receipts does he have to show that he's the guy? Like, it's not a long list. I'm talking about X's and O. Put aside, he's a great guy. Put aside, he's an alum. Put aside all the great things about Autry. Like, I want receipts. I want what you do as a coach when I give you these great players and spend the money on it that's going to flip this thing around. What is it? Like, you got a hard time selling that, right? That's just, as the kids would say, facts. That's just facts. You're going to have a hard time selling that when you lose to a team that's 1-11 in the ACC coming in. Everybody has bad losses. But again, you play good teams, you get blown out. You play the worst team in the ACC, you lose. You play Boston College, who had 2 ACC losses, you need triple overtime at home. Without Donnie Freeman, who we know is out for the year, and without JJ for 7 games, and you got to bake all that in the cake, that's fair. But see what I'm getting at here? And I know I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit here, but I'm trying to emphasize the point, like how hard this is going to be. And our insiders are reiterating that. A couple more from you guys. From Michael B. It says, I think Autry's a great guy. I have all the respect in the world for him taking over after Jim, but I really would like to see us go in another direction. I don't see a light at the end of this tunnel. From RJ, who says, I've been watching Syracuse basketball going on 20 plus years. Losing to the worst team in the ACC is par for the course. Unfortunately, for this team, I will no longer be watching, thanks to, he mentioned he is thankful that they have lacrosse to watch this year. That's a good team. That's an exciting team. Not only are they good, they're fun to watch, man. The flair, the edge of cockiness and confidence that you want from Syracuse lacrosse, 4 or 5 highlights a game that SportsCenter could put in the top 10. It's early. They've got a big test against Maryland this upcoming weekend, but I'm telling you guys, get on board with this lacrosse team, even if you don't know a darn thing about lacrosse, because they're a championship level team. Michael G, take us down the home stretch here with a couple more insiders. Says, God awful. I did not foresee us being this bad in my worst nightmares. Brian M will close us out. Says, there are parts of this game that I disagree with Autry's game plan. And I love to disagree with Autry. This game's about execution. Too many mindless turnovers. Too many lost guys on defense. The turnovers are inexcusable at this point. It's not all at Autry, right? Definitely not. Turnovers are the problem. Mental lapses, mistakes. Defense, look, I don't care what defense you're in. Defense is a mentality. Defense, no matter what label is on it, you got to bust your ass for 40 minutes. Against Miami, against Duke, and everyone in between. And that's who Syracuse beats. All the teams in between that elicit a yawn. Right? If it weren't for that Boston College game, put aside the opponent and the circumstances of it, at least something fun happened, at least something interesting happened. They went to triple overtime, like what you don't want to do against a team with 2 ACC wins. But if they don't have that, what's the moment of this year where you're like, man, boom, they did that. They didn't have one. So if that ends up being their moment, like they are free to prove me wrong and pull something out of where the sun don't shine and make a season of it and renew the faith to the people that don't have it, which is a growing faction, that Autry is the guy. Go to the ACC tournament and make a run there. Like there's still something to grasp onto, but the list of things is getting a lot shorter, right? And what's happening now is we're at that time of the year where watching the day-to-day of this team, you're losing those people. Everybody's just like, what are you going to do next year? Who's the point guard next year? Who's the center next year? What are you doing in the portal? Where are you spending money? Are they going to make a coaching change? Like, everybody's turning the page on this thing. And I don't blame them for it. I don't blame them for it. I really don't. But there's 6 games left. You got North Carolina Saturday coming to the Dome. North Carolina is definitely beatable. Syracuse beat North Carolina last year, right? One of the great moments that they had 2 great moments. Quadir Copeland's shot that beat Miami, and when they beat North Carolina at the Dome, and the fans rushed the court. You got that. That was a much better North Carolina team last year than this one coming in, which I mentioned earlier in the pod is hanging on by a thread in the NCAA tournament conversation right now. But it's still Carolina. It's a brand name. If you walk away from that game with a win, at least you beat North Carolina. So we'll see what the circumstance of that is. And then, look, we've gone over the schedule and what's left for this team. But man, here as we sit on February 11th, losing to the last place team, the now 6-18 Miami Hurricanes, but they were 5-18 coming in. They now 2-11 Miami Hurricanes, who were 1-11 in ACC play coming in. Like, that is as hard as it is as hard of a sell as you can get. That this program under Adrian Autry is going in the right direction. It just is. Okay? But they've got 6 games to go. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe we'll all be wrong. We'll look back on this and say, boy, did we overreact. Don't think so, but it's possible. It's sports, right? So North Carolina is next on Saturday. It's a 6 o'clock tip. We'll be back with you for another edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health after that game. Just a reminder, and subscribing on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube will get you this episode, but Chris Carlson and I are doing live pods on Thursdays on these channels you're watching now, and all our social media channels that we have for Syracuse Orange football, basketball, lacrosse. If you subscribe to Syracuse Sports on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get the pod on Thursdays, just like we're doing now in the postgame show, we flip it on live, just talk about those Syracuse sports subjects that are ever present and on our minds that day. We usually do it Thursday, usually around 3 or 4 o'clock or so Eastern time. So come hang for that. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders get priority and get their comments heard, not only tonight through the postgame show, but on the Syracuse Sports podcast as well. So maybe put that in your calendar that every Thursday we do it live and talk Syracuse sports with you. So we're looking forward to Another live episode of Syracuse Sports coming up Thursday afternoon. Thank you for hanging tonight. Appreciate your insight. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate our Syracuse Sports Insiders as always. But that'll do it for another edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame. Presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent Axe. Syracuse loses to Miami. The rock bottom loss in the Autry era, 91-84, your final from South Florida.